Hello, everybody. So, unlike last week, we're actually getting started a little bit early. Hopefully this makes up for things at least a little bit. One thing that I would like to know is at least one person's mentioned that there were some clicks going on in last week's stream, at least the recorded version of it. I don't know about the live version. If you hear any sort of sound defects like that, please let me know. Either if it's live right now, say something in the chat, or leave me a comment if you're watching the recording. I'd like to do whatever I can to try and get those fixed, because at least personally, like I find it a big pet peeve when I'm watching somebody and I'm not happy with the audio quality. So if I can do anything to fix my audio quality, I would very much like to do that. So with that said, let's talk about what we're doing today. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Civ6 Lua interpreter. It's the same thing that we were doing last week. So if you weren't here last week or you didn't watch the stream, the recording of it, the basic idea that we're going for is, and let's see if I can pull it up here. So in the game, Sid Meier's Civilization 6, hopefully it's loading here in a second, the mod API, so the underlying API that they use for writing some of the more complex mods is actually written, the mods are written in Lua. So if you're, hello Live Overflow, let's actually see here, I can actually pull these up. Where are they in here? So we poked through these a fair amount last week, and it turns out that, if I can actually get into them, DLC, well actually, let's go to the non-DLC ones. So, oh no, am I forgetting where these are? So, I come in here, oh, scenarios, there we go. In the scenario, there's these .lua scripts that we can open up. We can actually see, this is just straight Lua. There's an interpreter built into this that is going to take this Lua. So this is the tutorial Lua script that I don't actually know how this works. So in this case, they assign several, they create several of these functions, which I assume are default named functions that if any mod defines finish research goal, then whenever I finish a research goal, it would logically call that function. Although I have no idea what deconfliction they do. Presumably I can have multiple mods loaded at the same time that all specify a finish research goal, so I don't know what's going to happen if I have conflicting things. But that's another problem, right? These are all things that I want to find out later. The goal here is that this is a pretty complicated interface. So in just this one function, they're using some of the object-oriented, get local player is a function that is a member of the game object that's been defined someplace else. They get a player ID that's going to be used as an index into some array. This array, I have no idea where it's got to be a global because it's not being defined here. There's another global here that looks like a enum of some sort. Here's a different way to access members in an object. There's a lot going on here. It's a very complicated interface to the game. So the plan here is that if we can get in here and get really well into how these scripts get loaded, there's a decent chance that with a little bit of prodding, some pushing, maybe some coercion, if you will, we'll get to the point where we can find some really cool looking bugs that will hopefully get us code execution pretty easily. Now, with that said, last week we did things mostly kind of in a, I'm trying to think of the right way to word it, kind of naive way. It mostly amounted to digging through the directory. So I started this with the knowledge that Civ6 uses Lua scripts for the mod API, and that's about it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that we started with. And I'm pretty sure it was just these things get loaded somehow. So we started this up, we dug through, there's a whole bunch of XML configuration stuff we took a look at. Lots of XML stuff that we took a look at. And eventually came to this. This was also a quick scan for SQL. So they use SQLite databases, it looks like, to manage a whole bunch of internal state. So I did a quick scan for some of that stuff. But I think we've now gotten to the point where we can do a little bit better than that. The goal is going to be, hopefully, we also did some, actually, before I get to what we're going to do today, we also did a little bit of reversing. So I opened up some of these binaries in Binary Ninja, we poked it a little bit, didn't really find anything particularly useful. So from what I remember, which I think is reasonably good, it's only been a week, the registration functions, the way that they set up all... Oh, of course I closed the wrong one. Here we go. The way they set up things like this object on all the functions. So all of these functions are custom defined. Like get local player is certainly not a default Lua function. It's not a built-in of any sort. So they've had to set this up somehow. And my original hope had been this would be a pretty easy thing to do, that I'd just be able to go, oh yeah, here's the function in the main, like they're going to run main. One of these things is going to say, like, set up Lua functions, and it's just going to set all these things up for the Lua state. Well, it turns out that is, in fact, not the way they were doing things, and it looks like it's definitely more complicated than I was hoping for to, it looks like a lot of different, I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. Their code adds objects to the Lua state in a lot of different places. So, for example, I would assume, we didn't verify this, things like setting up a city, there's a code block that will set up the default cities, and that code block will set up this player cities object with all the functions attached to it. And then there's something equivalent for like barbarian setup. That's also going to set up all the Lua stuff for barbarians. And to some degree that makes sense, that they want to make this kind of concise, that the blob of code in their repo, wherever that is, that handles barbarians, handles both it's going to handle drawing a barbarian on the screen, it's going to handle the way they generate cities, and it's also going to handle the way the Lua interface is set up for dealing with barbarians. That makes sense. But it does make it a little bit harder for me to take a look at this after the fact. So after we played with that for a while, I ran into the issue that turns out this computer I'm using for streaming, I never got around to finishing configuring it for anything other than working in the VMs we had for all of the older Windows 95s, like fuzzing the old IE stuff. And that meant that I didn't have a lot of tools set up on the machine itself. In particular, I didn't have WinDebug set up. So I ended the stream a little bit early, and that leads us to today. So today, I now have WinDebug set up properly, and let's zoom this in a little bit so that people can actually read it. And if we, let's see here, I want to move that. Let's move this over here. Oh, no. Move this over here a little bit. No, stop that. Like that. So, we're using WinDebug. And one of the things that I've wanted to play with for a while now and haven't had time to is that relatively recently, looks like back in late September, so it's been a few months, that's what, almost 4 months ago, they added the new WinDebug Insider Preview version, which added several features. The big one was they redid the interface, so rather than the old interface that they've had for, I don't know, a decade or something, there's now this nice, I don't remember what they call this, like the ribbon interface that they've kind of standardized for a whole bunch of the Microsoft tools. They've also added in, there's a JavaScript API to do automation. But one of the really cool features they added was what's called time travel debugging. And so there's a couple different people that have implemented different versions of time travel debugging. I'm going to stumble over that probably all day. It's a little tricky to say. But time travel debugging, the basic premise is that normally when I'm debugging a program, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to, open up my debugger and I'm going to say, start this executable. I'm going to set a couple breakpoints. I'm going to go until I hit the breakpoint. And sometimes that's useful, and sometimes that's not. The big example of where that's not useful is when you're trying to track down a bug. For example, let's say I have some application that I know if I give it, if I tell Adobe to parse this PDF, Adobe will crash. Now, what do you do? So let's say I was fuzzing something and I have a crashing input, and I know that if I feed this input in, it will eventually crash. And if I open up this in a debugger and I run it through and I get to the point of the crash, and I have no idea what's going on, like it's a null deref someplace, or it's an invalid instruction, or whatever the crash is, I still need to be able to step backwards to where the problem actually started. The point where I crashed is very rarely the point where a bug in the program is, and it's much more likely that the bug was sometimes quite a ways removed from where I actually crashed. Now, the idea is that time travel debugging fixes that problem for you, that you're able to record the entire state of the program as it steps through all these things, and that once you finish that, you can both go forward and backwards in time to be able to say, oh, I had a crash here. Well, I want to see what things were like before this function got called. Like, step back to the previous function, I'm going to look at things there. Or step back, like I'll be able to set, I'm not actually sure if WinDebug supports this, but set up things like a breakpoint in the past that I want to go back to. I want to go to the last time this function was called, or any number of things like that. And able to step through things both forwards and backwards in time by keeping track of all those states. So that's something that it looks like we'll be able to use. So a backtrace gives you part of that information, but let's say, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. So a great example is, let's say I have function A and function B, and when function A runs, it takes in a whole bunch of state and it changes that same state. And in function B, it uses the new state and crashes somehow. And that causes a lot of problems. Like, it's really hard to track down what the starting state that caused the problem actually was. So hopefully that fixes it. Now, like Honorary Bot says, this is a new feature. It may or may not work. I did a very quick test earlier that shows that, at least to some degree, it works. I was able to attach to the Civ6... Wow, this is a little flashy. I was able to attach the process. I was able to almost start a game, and that was about it. I was able to then load that trace in. I didn't actually play with it or see anything like that, because, like I like to do on these streams, I kind of want to go into this blind. I don't want to know too much about what's going on, because... this is unfortunate. I'm trying to actually start WinDebug right now, and it does not want to start for me for some reason. There we go. For some reason, it started, like it added many different copies to my start menu. And I only want the one that lets me actually start the program, not all of the broken ones that do nothing. So what I just did there was I started the program and then restarted again as an administrator, because in order to attach and to actually do the time travel debugging stuff, apparently you need to be a administrator for it. So we have our Civ6. We're currently running here. One thing that I did verify is that Civ6 doesn't do any or very little anti-cheat. It was something I was a little bit concerned about because, so for example, let's say I was looking at the Lua interpreter that the World of Warcraft mod API uses. That's going to be a lot trickier to use because World of Warcraft does a lot of anti-cheat stuff. So I was a little bit concerned that maybe Civ6 was going to do a few things that made this harder, but it turns out, nope, it is just as easy as going, check here, attach, go. One thing that's important is that performance just tanked in the game. If this is working properly, performance should be very, very slow now, because now every single instruction, or almost every single instruction, they're keeping track of what's going on. They're keeping track of the state and how things are working. Yeah. The sudden jump into having sound there, like, it's very sketchy, broken up. But what I'm hoping for is we're going to play this through until we get to... Here is the start of the game, because at that point it should have registered those scripts and it should have run them. And that should get us to where we want to be. So, let's give this a little bit of time to wait. Yeah, that's about the point. This is, that's probably why they didn't do any anti-debugging stuff. So I'm responding to Der Besserwisser. They felt that if you're going to cheat, it doesn't, like, it's mostly a single-player game. If you're playing, or you're playing with your friends, there's not a huge esports community around it. So it doesn't make sense to do extra work for anti-cheat stuff. My concern, though, is that at least some of the anti-cheat stuff is really simple to just turn on. Like, some of the, like, I think it's as simple as, like, some API calls you make to Windows to tell it, you know what, no one should be able to debug this. Or some of the simpler things to check hooks or things like that. They might be trivial to bypass, but the developers could presumably decide to just check that box, turn it on, and then it'd make things much harder for me. So, turns out they didn't, so this is going to hopefully be relatively easy. As far as Live Overflow's question, I believe that multi-threaded stuff works fine, but it's, like I said, it's a new feature. This is my first playthrough with it. I've never actually used it before this. Oh wow, that sound is awful. Okay, we're turning this off. Because when it was nice, smooth audio, I was happy to have it. Like, it made for a little bit of interesting sound for us, but if you're not going to play sound properly at all, then we're just getting rid of that. So, but yeah, as far as I know, if I'm going to do this, I have to trace all of the threads. And I think that makes sense to some degree, because especially if one thread is going to affect the main thread, you're going to have to record that somehow, and that would be tricky if you weren't recording all of the threads. Which is actually one of the other big reasons why time travel debugging might be useful. So let's say you have a race condition or something, like you know that there's some sort of race condition in there and you need to figure out why. Depending on exactly how they've implemented time travel debugging, it should make it a lot easier to troubleshoot that. I'll be able to step back and see, okay, which of the threads were executed, like what order did they execute in to cause this problem. But the downside here is that, for one, this is going to take a while to generate, because we still have to go through all of this work to generate the world. and it's logging all of that to disk for me, which at this point is probably actually quite large. So where did that end up? Yeah. So we're currently on this Civ6 03 run that they're making. So it's now what is this? 27 gigabytes of data that it's taken to record this. Yeah, so one of the upsides is that the new computer has a terabyte SSD on it, so I'm not super concerned about running out of space. Yeah, I've got another 800 gigs worth that we can fill up. Hopefully it doesn't take that much for just loading a game, but it is definitely a possibility. So if you watched what I did here, that's actually exactly what I did. I didn't want to trace all of the startup for the game, or I wanted to trace as little startup as I could. So all of the like menu screen stuff, I don't care how it drew all those boxes. We don't need to trace that. Instead, I attached after it had already drawn all that just before I click on the Start Tutorial button. And again, the reason why we're starting with the tutorial is because the tutorial loads this Lua script. It does, so let's see here. It assigns a starting tech. It's going to get a local player ID. If it is none, if it's not none, then we're going to get the player for that. We then get our techs. If we have techs, we're going to do a make hash for Dawn of Civilization. If it is nil, then we will research that. Otherwise, there's some error cases. Okay, so they're going to like this function, if I understand what it's doing, forces the local player to be researching Dawn of Civilization. Seems simple enough. And so, for people who are curious, whenever I want to, we'll be able to hit this stop and debug button, which will then stop tracing, let the program run on its own, and it will use all that saved state. I'm just waiting here for... Hopefully we get far enough on here that, at least before we get absurdly large in space, that I want to be confident that we've loaded this script already. I'm thinking through this a little bit. So, among other things, starting the tutorial does things a little bit differently, and I'm a little bit concerned that it might be more different than I really want it to be. Among other things, it doesn't go through the normal start game stuff. Although I'm hopeful that most of the game starts the same way anyway. But we will have to see. It's really tempting right now to hit stop and debug and hope that we've loaded enough. Oh, you know what we can do while we wait? We can actually debug this and... Wait, why are we reinstalling? No, I don't want to reinstall you. There we go. So where did we say we wanted to break in? I want to break in when we do preferably a... click in here. PL call, a P call. So this Lua P call is where we want to break in. Hopefully this is actually getting called. So if we take a look at what it's being passed in with, it's passing in the Lua state. Oh no, P call isn't what I want. Let's go to the Googles and see what the Googles have to say here. Because you're still loading, right? Yeah, you're still loading. So Lua. CAPI. So the Lua C API, I think, is one of probably the best part of Lua, because you're able to, bind all of this stuff to your like Lua scripting stuff. You're able to then pass in scripts and just execute them. I'm trying to find here. I don't want Lua. So we create a Lua state. We set it all up, and then to run a script, we call... I feel pretty bad that I can't remember how to do this. Like I was about to say, I've written several CTF challenges that do exactly this. How did I do that? And rather than doing the logical thing, which is pulling up the challenge that I wrote that does this, I was trying to find it myself. So this was a CTF challenge that I wrote a while back. And the way that I did it, I will do git delim, it puts it into inbuff, we terminate it properly, and we're going to use Lua load string. So, do we have a load string? We have a load file, and a load string. That looks good to me. So a Lua load file does what? Lua, not colua, Lua L load file. So Lua, zoom. Lua load file. Maybe. So to answer Der Besserwisser's question, so shouldn't the script be loaded into memory? Couldn't you just do a memory dump, search for the script, and search for cross-references? Maybe. If we can break... So what I want to do is I want to break when it calls Lua load file or Lua load buffer or Lua load string. Because at that point, I know that there's going to be a string that's referenced in memory here that has the script that's about to be run, and there's an existing state that I can dig through. And really what I want to do here is I want to take this Lua state, and I just want to start exploring what all is in this state. Like, it's a big state, what all is in it. There should be at some point, I'm not entirely sure where, but there should be in this state a table of all of the defined objects, and hopefully we're going to be able to make some good progress there, whenever we finished loading this. But that's still a little ways away. And ideally, that's going to work out well. Does this have... That's unfortunate. It is an opaque structure, but that does not mean that we can't look into it. So where are we now? Oh! We can begin a game. Yay! Okay, so that should be plenty now. And I should be able to come in here, stop and debug. And now this... Ooh. Well, that's unfortunate. What just happened? No, there's this 60 gigabyte run file. What are you talking about? Open trace file. This one. I tested this earlier and it totally worked. If this doesn't work, I'm going to be a little unhappy. Yeah, it is entirely possible that the problem here is it's trying to map the entire run file into memory, and I don't quite have enough space for that. Yeah, I know it's still a preview. It doesn't mean I don't want to play with it and test it completely. I will be disappointed but understanding if this doesn't work. Yeah, this doesn't look like it's working. That's... Okay. We have to do this the old-fashioned way. Rather than getting to play with all the new fancy toys, I have to do it manually. Ugh. Okay. So we're now reloading Civ 6. Loading. But I don't think I can start it at a breakpoint. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to breakpoint normally. Rather than doing the whole time travel debugging and saving a run, we'll just use the debugger as it was originally intended and be forward only. So I should be able to attach to a process. Attach to a process. Why are we not? This somehow not get reloaded as a regular user? Okay, let's try this again. We're going to close this one. And this one we want to attach to a process. There we go. Civ6. Now, I want to... I'm going to have to look this up to make sure I'm doing this properly. So if I went to U, is that right? Oh no. Yeah, so I want to disassemble at this, which is... oh, nope. Disassembly graph. I want you to show me my addresses. So this should be in Havoc script Lua load. Maybe. So are you going to actually let me do that? I think backtick. Do I not have tab completion? It's unfortunate. How do I actually do that? I know there's a way to do it, I thought. Like, I want in this DLL this breakpoint. Well, we'll find out pretty quickly if this works or not. Oh, actually, you know what? I can do X. I can X to show symbols, can't I? How do I do this again? Yeah, unfortunately, my win debugging is not as much as I would like it to be. LD this thing. Do we not have symbols for some of this stuff? Is that the problem here? So we have this loaded already. Well, you know what? We can do it this way. It's not the way that I would like to do it, but I guess it will work. Oh, no. This plus this. Oh, look at that. It totally has this. I was just calling it wrong, wasn't I? Okay, that works. No, I was totally just typing things wrong. I wanted to get symbols out of a DLL, and apparently I just don't know the right way to ask for that. Because... Oh, I am saying to load symbols, not to tell me, not to list symbols. I am dumb. Anyway, we have this. I want to add a breakpoint, so B... so for people who are curious, I have this cheat sheet on my other screen that I'm scrolling through because I can't keep straight in my head all of the differences between GDB and WinDebug, and I tend to use WinDebug a little bit more. So this bang HKSI Lua L load. What did I say this was? HKSL Lua or underscore load buffer. HKSL load buffer. That looks good. So load buffer, load script. It's not load script, it is load string. And load file. That looks good. Better use BU to make ASLR proof. So if I did X module name, oh, hey, look at that. That totally works. Fancy. And now we go. We have our game back. Want to load the tutorial. And skip that. We're going to play as Cleopatra again. And we should be able to watch in the background here this do stuff. It's a little interesting that they reloaded that DLL on us, but what do I know? Ooh. Okay, so maybe I did this wrong. Back to our main menu? No, I don't. Yes, quit. I want to... How do I do? There it was. Break. There we go. So I want these to be BU, not BP. And let's try this again. Why is this not? Okay. Yes, exit to main menu. Create a new game. How do I actually do this? So I think this is something that I didn't actually figure out last time. How do I actually play these scenarios? Other than the tutorial one. Oh, additional content. It's enabled. Like, how do I do this? Civ6 play single player scenario. Ew. Do I not have the DLC installed? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Let's see here. Like, I have the Aztec Civilization pack. Well, I can also do it this way. We're going to come over here. We're going to create a game. Okay. So we're doing that off there because I don't necessarily want my Steam ID on stream, but it turns out it's using the local user account instead. So that's okay with me. So I've created a multiplayer game using the scenario rule set. And it looks like I should... Okay, did I do this wrong? It's using the Ancient Rivals. Does the Ancient Rivals not have... Oh, the Ancient Rivals doesn't have a Lua script. The Cold War does have a Lua script. So, main menu, yes. We're going to move this back over here because while it does not put my Steam information there, it does put some of the other people. It does put people I have as friends, and not sure they would like that on the stream either. So, there we go. We have set up the rule set, and we're starting. So this time we're doing Global Thermonuclear War, which I believe is the Cold War, which had, like, I assume that's Cold War. And this does have a Lua script that it says is a script.lua. So I would expect this to break in. No, I did not disable VAC. Didn't look like I needed to. I mean, if they ban me, they ban me. I'm not that upset. But there was a Lua script there. Why didn't you use it? Or why didn't I break in when you tried to use it? Okay, we're going to do this one more time. So the Napoleon scenario should also do the... Okay, so the Napoleon scenario... This is the Napoleon scenario. Should also do it. Load Lua func name. So I loaded up, I set up a couple of them. I would expect it to work. Oh, no, stop that. Yeah, it's possible we have the wrong module. That's, if this also doesn't do it for us. Oh, do I have to do something special to tell it to look in all of the threads? It's unfortunate if that's the case. Yeah, this is not what I want. Okay. And if I break in, everything is going to break now. But list my breakpoints. That looks right-ish. Load buffer, load string, load file. BM, they're not bound to a thread by default. So let's say x star bang star load buffer star. Hmm. It is a little interesting to me how much of the Steam stuff gets loaded too. Yeah. Huh. It's amusing to me that there's kernel stuff that's turning up. Yes, so I could set a write breakpoint or a read breakpoint on the memory, but I don't actually know where it's getting read. I could break on... So I don't know that it's in memory yet. So before I start the game, it's definitely not in memory. After I start the game, it's going to get read from a file into memory, and then they're going to do something with it. Last time we verified that the tutorial was getting loaded. Like we used procmon, verified that it got loaded. So, So looking at this, the Lua plus Lua state load buffer, Lua L load buffer, and HKSI Lua L load buffer, that's these three, are all the same thing. This is something different, and this is also something different. So there's three different things that do Lua load buffer, which is interesting. So, well, we previously set it on these. Let's do it on these. This might be a better place to be. Maybe that's the problem. So, bu that load buffer, load string, load file. Oh. Really? Break back in. Load file doesn't have an analog there? So there's not an analog for that like the other ones had. There's only the two different versions of it. So let's also do this one. So now we have 6 breakpoints that are all on slightly different things. Let's give this one a try. I have to say, I'm kind of impressed at how little anti-cheat they're doing here, given that a lot of the time... oh, there we go. I talked too soon. So what I was going to say there is a lot of the time, if you break in for a little while, you're going to end up triggering whatever anti-cheat they're doing. And it turns out that amount of anti-cheat was enough to cause problems. Okay, so this is where we find out that I am now banned from playing Civ 6. No. It turns out I can still play Civ 6. Okay, so let's do this again. WinDebug preview. Run as administrator. Yes. Okay. It looks like being broken in the game caused enough problems. So I want to attach. I'm really confused why they did that. Oh, there we go. This one. And we're here. So I wanted to do X, this thing. Bang star load buffer. It is not called that. X star bang star load buffer. Okay, so I want... I'll wait for this to finish and I'll grab them all. Yeah, so last week we did verify that the files are getting loaded, and you actually get a stack trace from Procmon. Procmon, yes, you get a stack trace from it, and we dug through that a little bit. And the downside there is that it loads the file, and then it does a whole bunch of other stuff, which is why I wanted a debugger, so I can actually break on when it gets used. So I want this one. I also want this one. Load buffer, load string, load file. And this, load buffer, load string, load file. Go. Now then, we're going to come over here again. Multiplayer, local, create game. And we want Napoleon again. Napoleon. Confirm! Yes, I'm ready. Ooh, I didn't know I could do the multiple breaks. I might have to start doing that. Unless, of course, this gives us the breakpoint we want. Huh! Interesting. Interesting. So they are doing some sort of anti-cheat stuff. So last time I thought that when we broke in last time, this would definitely appear to be some sort of anti-cheat stuff, that they are intentionally preventing me from breaking on this. Because now that I have breakpoints set up properly, oh, right, you guys can only see the one screen. Oh. I get this nice little message. We've crashed. Pulse debug. I don't actually know what pulse debug is. I don't think I've ever heard of that. So setting breakpoints on this and running caused it to crash. But I don't remember which one. So let's, I said let's, not Alexa. Jeez. Where are we? So I want to grab my view page. Let's mute this so we don't have to listen to me. Luckily, we have the video replay here. So when we were setting the HKSL functions, we did not get that crash. But when we set the which ones were the? When we set the Lua L ones, we did. So that's interesting. That tells us a little bit more. It means that the Lua L ones aren't the ones getting used. So let's just try that again, right? So I need to detach. And now that I'm detached, am I going to be able to start it again? Yeah, there we go. How do I set it, like, force it to be a hardware breakpoint? I'm sure there's a way to do it, right? Skip over this. Don't care about the video. hardware breakpoint. That's actually a very good point. BAE1. So breakpoints. Execute 1. Oh, okay. I'm torn on which way to do this. Let's start with that, because that should be pretty straightforward to set up. So, local network, create game. I want to attach again. We're going to attach real quick. BAE1. What? Okay. I'm not going to complain too much. String load file. Oh, load file. Oh, crap. Sorry, I'm doing everything wrong. Clear and clear. I don't want those. I want the Lua L ones. I want those ones. Load file, load string, load buffer. Have those set up. Those are hardware breakpoints. We're going to load the Napoleon save and go. Let's try this again. And we crash again. And we crash again. Well, this is fun. So we crashed again, and we also spewed out get context state failed a bunch. So that clearly does not work. So back to the other plan. We're going to do time travel debugging again, but now we know we're doing the right thing. Hopefully. I'm hopeful here. One more try. So it dies check context with DR registers. I'm going to try the time travel debugging real quick. See, hopefully that works. Because hopefully we'll be able to do this one more time here. Yep. So it does check context. Yeah, maybe. Like, there's so many things that maybe, like, it might be doing it this way, it might be doing it that way. Okay, so we have this. We're gonna try and do this as quickly as possible. So I want to, no, don't save workspace. Start debugging, attach to process, Civ6 with time travel debugging. I don't want to attach yet. I want to start this 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, go. I probably had to cut it a little bit closer. So hopefully this works now. Because ideally, as soon as this starts, we're going to break in, and hopefully this has the context we want it to have. So for anybody who is tuned in in the past hour, stop debug. That is unfortunate. Initialization in the guest never completed? Ugh. Ugh. So I do know that, so this was the first attempt that I made, which was just, can I load it at all? And this totally works. But this was only the startup part of it. Like, I loaded the game, it works. Yeah, it didn't even get us very far at all loading things, did it? Okay. So what's our next option here? What I wanted to do isn't working well. So I can't trace it. They're doing something that's causing it not to let me break in. But it may only be when it hits a breakpoint somehow. So it's only when I have a breakpoint set that it's going to hit does it do it. Like they're very clearly doing things to screw with me, which is unfortunate. What events are there? This is interesting. So I'm just poking at what features the time travel debugging has. Interesting. Yeah, the DLL stuff may be my next best bet. Is there anything more immediate that I can do? So, what exactly is happening? So if I come in here and I say these, they're not just failing because of size, and I'm deleting them because I don't care about them that much. Oh, skip it. Of course you can't. Of course you can't delete the ones that I'm currently using. So I can't do this the way I wanted to. They're doing some anti-cheat stuff at least to prevent me from doing that. How does Windows do lookups? Can I just do that? Like, can I just be an awful person and say, you know what, we're gonna... So it was the Lua L load file version that caused problems, I think. Which is... Huh. Actually, let's think about this for a second. So if I did Lua L load file, it caused problems for me. If I did HKSL load file, it did nothing. Was that correct? What are we doing here? How do I detach? Let's try this again. So looking at what this script is actually doing, or code is actually doing, the Lua L load file just sets up a couple things and then calls HKSL load file. So if I can't breakpoint on this one, no, only one step. If I can't breakpoint here, I should be able to just breakpoint here then and not have a problem. At least I would think so, right? Because I seem to remember we broke here and it didn't care. Like, we never hit that. Okay, so, so the module is called have this. So I want to do bm this bang Lua L load star. 3 breakpoints on load file, load buffer, load string. Go. And we're going to do multiplayer. Create game. Napoleon. Yes, go Napoleon. So this is on Lua L load file. We started and we crashed. So if I do instead of load file, we have to wait for this to start back up, and we're going to reattach to it, and we're going to poke around a little bit. If instead of load file, we do this HKSL load file, what happens? Come on. There we go. Continue. Let's attach again. File, attach. This one. Go again. Oh, no, we don't want to go. Break in. So we said I want HKSL load star. Go. That looks good. Same thing, Napoleon, go! Set an access point. That may be a way to do it. Ha! So are they specifically checking Lua load file? Well, it hasn't. Wait, what just happened? So we used HKSL load file. That worked fine. So if I do Lua L load string, it will call, oh, load string does not call that. Okay. So these two both call HKSI load buffer. Whoops. So we've learned something. We have learned that it does not use load file, because if it used load file, that should have caught it. We need to break in here, and we want HKSI, HKSL load buffer. Try this again. Multiplayer. Off to the side so you don't need to see my friends. Back over here. Napoleon, go. Doop. vprot is also an option. So, you're assuming that it will run in a VM for pulse debug. Yes, I actually use it on bare metal, not VM like, and we crashed. Okay. So, this does not work. Interesting. So the two threads we have right now are both dealing with memory stuff. So that's interesting. So we're going to start this again. But we now know what function we want to have. We want to have HKSI, HKSL load buffer. Oh, and we're still attached. The process still sticking around. We're going to reload this again. Come on. So what I'm hoping here, I'm going to do what HonoraryBot was suggesting. We'll do that on access. We now know exactly what function we want. So we want to do a... Well, let's attach real quick while this all plays through. Attach, Civ6, break on break on reading. Multiplayer. Doop. This one. Let's try this again. Maybe. I kind of expected to fail, but I guess it's farther than we got last time. Wait, what? Now I'm just all sorts of confused. I did a break on read. And it didn't break. Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? Okay, so break in. HonoraryBot says RDR6, RDR7. I don't actually know what these are telling me. Like, these are flags, but I don't know what any of the flags mean. Is there a good way to get the flag information? So the DR6 is what exactly? Like, I want... Thanks, kitty. 0, 1. Yeah, I have absolutely no idea what I'm looking at here, other than I'm looking at a bunch of flags. Really confused about why this didn't trigger the same thing. Like, I would expect it to. Gives which hardware breakpoints are on. Yeah. That makes sense. DR0 has the breakpoint address. And... oh, that makes sense. So... 2, 3. So they've only have one breakpoint, hardware breakpoint set. And what is that? So if I do U this, I get what? It's totally set. Yeah, no, it's totally set. And I don't know why it didn't work. So they didn't change it. We know that setting an execute breakpoint crashes the program for some reason. So Lua L load file is doing a move. Lua L load buffer starts off with a sub. So they're not doing anything really clever. Actually, why are they doing that? Move R8. Like they're just setting up a slightly different set of arguments? Okay. So what's next? I can't easily break in wherever I want because that's failing for me. I can keep playing with trying that, but what other options do I have right now? So I know that this loads a Lua script. I know that it does it somehow, and it's got a Lua state that it passes around. But if I assume I can't use... Actually, wait a minute. Where was that? Like, where was that Lua log? I know I had one open at one point. Yeah. So this thing. Does this tell me anything? This tells, like, this is the log, and it did open, like, it ran start script. Like, there's a staging room. And if I open... Yeah, I get printed this out because it said to print this out. Okay, so I verified that doing a read does do it. We also verified that doing... what about that? So this was today's video. If we go back to yesterday's video, I want this one. Are you seriously playing ads for me on my own video? That seems a little silly, but okay. Okay, so where were we? Can't I break on get context? Why would I break on get context? Like, I can try. I'm not sure what it would do. So this was the stack trace that it said we had. Yeah, I suspect that that's false, though. That the get context might be... If they're doing any sort of anti-debugging, I wouldn't be surprised that they're, like, causing problems for different things. So this was the stack trace when they opened the Lua script, I think. Let's step back a little bit farther. Come on. Oh. That's where I stopped for grab a drink, didn't I? So they did call Lua pcall, which eventually calls read file. World inker, world screen. Calls that, calls read file. Like, I kind of feel that some of these symbols are wrong. Although the Lua pcall does seem like what I expect to see. Like, I expect to see a Lua pcall that actually accesses stuff. What if I try that? So HKSI Lua pcall. Let's break on that and see what happens. So B, what was it? I want to do a BA of HKSI Lua pcall. So a pcall is a call with certain things with a stack done differently in the Lua VM stuff. Multiplayer, local network. And we're doing this one again. Really need to figure out why my graphics are messing up like that. I'm hoping it's just because of like the debugger running on it too, but I have no idea. So the break on access, I would expect to cause a breakpoint. Why didn't that break? Shouldn't a break on access do what I want it to do? I want to break on reading that, which I would expect to work. Like, can I break on read file with a regex on the file name? Maybe. So the address that we have set here is, that looks correct. No, in here, pcall. Like, that looks reasonably correct, I think. 54CO. Yeah, that looks reasonably correct. That never gets called. BA E1 Nope, you crashed right away. So we need to detach. We need to reload the game now because I crashed it again. Oops. So at least this documentation says 1, 2, or 4 bytes. Although I think on 64-bit it works with 8 bytes. So what do I know? But what do I know? Like, I do not use WinDebug nearly as much as I would kind of like to. Whoa. That's interesting. Yeah, as soon as we were going to break in, it just crashed. Which leads me to believe that they're definitely doing some sort of anti-debugging trick. I don't know what it is, but they're doing something. It's because breakpoint saved in your workspace. I just have the one breakpoint. But yeah, we can clear this, and we can do an 8 instead. Read 8 on it, but this is not going to do anything because we're dead. We are dead, Jim. We're dead. And it's starting again. We're going to attach again. We're going to go again. We're going to break again. We're going to set 8 bytes as a read access. No, isn't We're Dead Jim? Oh, he's dead, Jim. I'm a bad Star Trek fan, apparently. So it's really weird to me. So during that video, when I clicked off there, if it was an execute breakpoint, we crashed there. I bet you, with this read breakpoint, it doesn't get hit at all, does it? Yeah. For some reason, read breakpoints are being treated very differently than execute breakpoints. And I don't know why. Like, I thought that they worked the same. But I guess I'm wrong. Like, logically, you can't execute an instruction without reading it. So I would expect a read breakpoint to also function as a superset of execute breakpoints. But apparently that doesn't work. So what's my next step here? If I can't break in, well, what doesn't make sense is it looks like the execute breakpoints trigger as soon as it would be accessed. So, for example, if I break on the Lua pcall thing, it actually breaks whenever I change a scene. So supposedly, this is to Live Overflow, supposedly these are hardware breakpoints. I don't know enough about the Windows stack to make sure that's true. Like, my understanding, though, from what HonoraryBot has said and my brief reading about it, says that these should be hardware breakpoints, so I would expect these to be breaking in anyway. What else can I try? That's not a bad idea at all. So if we assume that they're going to eventually call load buffer, if I say this one, patch it, I don't want to convert it to nops, I want to assemble sure. And I want to patch this to be an int3. Ta-da! Seriously? You use the 2-byte int3 and not the single byte int3? For shame. Actually, before I do this, I want to back this up because I don't have to reinstall Civ6 when this breaks everything. Can I make a loop in the script and then... I'm not sure exactly what you mean, Honorary Bot. Okay, so we have 2 copies of it now. I want to save this. Yep. Replace it. File, save. We'll save this here. I'm going to take this. It is 567 bytes. We're going to paste it here, replace it. It's open. Oh, that's why it failed. It's because I'm currently playing the game, and the game uses that binary. What do you know? Try again. So, now, if it tries to do that, we should have it int3 on us. Because we've now... So I've changed the start of load buffer to be int3s. So hopefully, if we... Whoops. So it looks like load buffer is used much more than I was expecting it to be. No. Well, what does this tell us? So this tells us that this should work. So why don't we just do that? So which of these is the original? Let's delete this version, put this version back. We're going to call it the proper name. And we're going to start this up. Yeah, it's possible. My guess, though, is that, yeah, that's my plan, is we're going to start this up, and we're going to attach right before we would expect it to load. We're going to then write into memory CCs. Ow! Seriously, kitty? I understand you can't see this. The cat decided that she wanted to be on my lap, so she tried to hurtle over the arm that is holding the mouse, and scratched me in like 4 different places trying to do that. So, goodbye, kitty. Where are we? I want to multiplayer, do this off screen, do this on screen. Napoleon, confirm. We're going to attach. We're attached. So, I want to write bytes, which should be WB, I think? No. How do I do that? Thought it was WB, but apparently not. No, edit. EB should do it. So... db so if I do db, prints out stuff that looks roughly correct, and if I do eb, that cc. Oh, do I have to actually give it this address instead? We're going to do that right there. Oh, DB. I want EB. There we go. Go. Oh. Okay. So we got the exact same crash that we were previously, and nothing useful is happening there. So that tells us nothing, maybe? Well, it does tell us that it did that immediately. So it might be a little bit different. Maybe going for another exception generator. I do like the idea. If I write a Lua script as a mod, like if I write my own mod, then I should be able to write one that is going to just infinite loop. So I should be able to break in at some point and say, oh, look, here we are. What is an exception code 8,000,000,003? So I'm looking up in my event log. I realize you can't see that. That it is... Well, none of this is helpful. So it is crashing there, and it is crashing... So it's crashing when it gets to the CC. No. Now. So if I take this, go... No, don't do that. Over here, go 1800 that. One 180035. Oh, so we're in Lua pcall. I'm really confused here. So you know what? So I was talking to one of my coworkers who has a little bit more experience doing game hacking stuff than I do. And he mentioned that loading a game from Steam worked slightly differently than usual. That they passed some sort of a special flag to create process so that one of the threads wouldn't show up properly, which may actually explain what we're doing. Like, this right here is telling me that it hit... Like, this is basically telling me that I got an int3 at the address I expect to. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking now. That the problem isn't that this isn't working, that all of those exceptions we're hitting our exception and WinDebug isn't catching it. How do I force this to core dump? Do I have a core dump? Like, did this create a core dump for me? How do I find this out? Yep, this is what I want. Like, C, program data, Microsoft, Windows. Let's see what happens when we load that up. Does that exist? If I do open detach, open dump file, I want C program data, Microsoft Windows, that's the Windows event reporter. temp. Ah, it is already gone. That's unfortunate. I need to leave that up. But the game itself can redefine one. Not sure what that means. So what I'm hoping is the Werfault has a core dump with it. It looks like this is core dumping where I expect it to. And if I go to some of these previous ones, like, I don't know what an exception code 8004 would mean, but yeah, so an exception code 3 is a status wait. Oh, no. Paste that in. 8004 is a status single step or trace operation has just completed. 8003 is we hit a breakpoint. So given that the event, like my event log here says that we triggered, like we hit the breakpoint, we expected to breakpoint. And here we hit a int3, like we expected to hit an int3. And it says it has a dump for it. Let's try this again. So I need to reload the game. Let's start from there. We'll close you. Start it this way. So what I'm hoping for here is that I'm going to be able to start the game, set the breakpoint, go to where we want to be, and then when I get that box, until I click off of it, that core dump should still be there. So hopefully I can grab it, and that will give me what I actually wanted to begin with. We'll see. This is all completely random theory. And we're waiting for this to load. We're still waiting for this to load. Continue. Multiplayer. Off screen. Create game. Okay, so I want to do cavalry and colonnades. I want to attach to Civ6. And I want to do that. Go. And now confirm settings. Go. We load. And we crash, right? What has gone wrong? I set those breakpoints. Oh. After all of this, and I'm setting the wrong breakpoints. Break in. I want not those, but the Lua L load star. There we go. Those are the breakpoints I wanted. Do 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 do. And we crashed. Okay. So while this is open, I should be able to come in here, refresh. We do in fact have a crash here. So we should have this existing, right? So until I click, oh, where's it going? So C : program data, Microsoft, Windows, Word. There we go. I want to take all of this stuff. Yep. Put it here. There we go. So, what exactly do we have here? So we've got some nice information there. Let's read this in Sublime so I can actually read it. That's all the loaded stuff, isn't it? And if I actually take this, I can drop... Can I drag and drop? I can drag and drop. Oh, look at this. Huh. Okay, so if we come in here... How do I do this? So go OX1800 that. We are in fact in Lua load string. So this is awful and bad and I hate it so much, but I should dot reload. What? So I did dot reload and now, oh, there we go. Wrong window. Unable to verify, and we're still not getting it, but that's okay-ish, because it actually loaded right. Like we totally have... So why did the reload not give me symbols like I would like them to have? Lua load string accepts a Lua state and a point and a const star pointer. So I'm gonna DRSI. Seriously? Oh, this is gross. We have a core dump finally, but it doesn't have the state we want. So RDX, what's the right set of arguments here? RDI should be the Lua state, right? Which is 0. I'm not sure how that works that it's null. But I suspect that if we could actually read these bytes, we would see what string is being executed, but unfortunately we can't. I'm trying to think here. What's our next step now? We can, in awful fashion, get a core dump, but we're getting a core, like, so let's think about the problem here. The problem is that somehow WinDebug is not catching the crash, even when it's attached. How can we fix that? Because Windows is still doing something with it. If I do... how do I do it? How do I... WinDebug preview... what is it called? Post-mortem. So I want to set this as a post-mortem debugger. Ideally, I don't want to have to do this. Right? So if I set this as a post-mortem debugger, I should still catch that crash, I think. And then actually be able to explore things. But how do I do that? Can I do that easily here? Why won't it work? So whir is catching it, right? So wouldn't setting a postmortem debugger just replace whir? Like that was how I thought it worked, is that if the Windows error reporting would trigger, then if it checks to see if there's a postmortem debugger, if there is not, it will do the error reporting. Not RCX, RDX, R8, R9. I'm actually not sure what the right order is on Windows. Like, I would totally buy that I'm looking at the wrong order. In either case, RDX and RSI are the same value, so I would expect them to either way, I would expect those to be my string, but I still can't read it. Okay. While true do. I want to just do this. This is now saved. Let's try that. So we're just going to continuously reinitialize this thing. And judging by what I expect the quality of this code to actually look like, I kind of expect that this is going to just straight up crash rather than doing anything useful, but we'll see. So move you over here. Sorry about that. A little tired. It's been a long day. Okay, multiplayer, local network, create game. Napoleon, confirm settings. Ready to play. So we're currently trying to actually break in. It looks like, well, so to answer your question, Igor, it looks like we're, the Civ6 at some point is doing some sort of anti-debugging. I don't know what it is, but it looks like they're doing something. So this looks promising. Let's load. Yeah, look at that. It is infinitely initializing. So we're just sitting there spinning. If we attach to it, we're broken in. What's going on here? So these are all our threads. Which of them do we care about? I'm actually not sure which of these I should be looking at. Oh, that's not what I wanted to expand. Go back down to normal size. This is what I want to expand. So compiler settings, I don't think we care about. The ones that are in thread start, I definitely don't care about. These I don't care about. These I probably don't care about. Hmm. Running. So where are we? It's in audio? That seems wrong. How do I backtrace properly? How do I actually do a backtrace? Well, I just feel dumb. Shows how much I've been using WinDebug recently. I want to do... There's an easy way to do this, and I can't believe I can't remember how to do it. Not exceptions. Not Alexa. List all threads, all threads. That might be interesting. So .t time. This is clearly not the one I want. So go, break in again. It's on the same thread? K. K is what I want. This is why I feel so dumb. Oh! Okay. So what I wanted to do is not going to work. That's unfortunate. Yeah, did not realize that. Okay, so I want to look at my thread. Is there an easy way to do this? Execute in all threads K. So now that I have this, this looks promising. This did something. It made a malloc. Maybe that isn't what I want yet. So what I've done here is I've said for every thread, print out your stack. Like give me a stack trace. What do we have here? Process input. Which might be what we want. Oh, or I could just search for this properly, couldn't I? So this is the thread we want. It's doing a p call right now. And if I come here, I should be able to click here, right? R unable to locate it. I want to go to thread 884. What about call window? I'm not sure what you mean by that. But this is definitely where I want to be. I just need to figure out how to actually access it. That's interesting. Oh, those are stack addresses. Oh, those are stack addresses. Okay. But that's not quite what I want. So if we're at Lua pcall ox8a, what are we doing? So pcall, which one is it? It's HKSI Lua pcall plus 81. Does it look like a plus 81? Hex ox354co plus ox81 is 41. Yeah, we're in this sub right here. So did we save off RCX someplace? So if... Oh, that's a lot of arguments. I'm not sure what all those arguments are. But presumably we would have saved those off if they're important, right? Or we pass them in. I should be able to do this, shouldn't I? Like, I should be able to, like, switch to this. Unable to enumerate locals. Debug error 005. This tells me that... Oh. Huh. Like, I don't want the symbols, I just want to know what the arguments were. What does dv do? Display local variables and parameters. Like, ideally, that's what I would get, but I just want the arguments. Can I not do that properly in WinDebug? Seems odd. Is there really not a way to say, here's the thread, tell me what's at this frame? I mean, I guess I can go make... So which thread is this? This is thread 8400. Of course, is not in hex. Why would it be in hex? Silly me. Thinking you would give me information in a useful format. I want thread ID 20F8. Oh, there you go. Look at that. We did, in fact, switch the right thread. So if I do K again, gives me this. Okay, getting better here. And this should be the... Oh, that's... Child SP is here. So I should be able to dump bytes at that. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Because we're passing it in registers, they may not be saved on the stack. But knowing, like, okay, let's actually take a look at this. So we take RBX, we save it off, we save RBP, we save RSI. We then push a bunch of values. So if this is the stack address, it should be the stack address before, after. So this went from BO, 90 BO to much farther down. So what we have here is instead of DB, I should do DWord? D, what's wide? I want memory. Keyword, DQ. So stack address, no, that's not a stack address. Some address, null, something, 1. Well, let's just start dumping stuff, right? DQ this. Not a clue what that is. Can I dump a string? Oh, that is not a string. Is that not a string? 56, 41, 54, 41. Guess that's ATAV. Weird. I don't know what this is. I can add a memory view. Can't add a memory view. Can I? Oop. Oh, look at that. That's convenient. And I should move this to the chat bucket for people who aren't me. Can I do anything else with this? Where are we? So that was that, which doesn't look super useful. What about this? ODOA might be return address. That is like that's too random a number for that. ODOA is that's our script. Function initialize. So this right here is our string mapped in. We then passed in a 1. What is this? Fields that's not mapped in, which is a little weird. This is a heapish address. Heapish address. Ooh, and I have no idea what this is. Yeah, I would expect to be able to, but I'm not quite sure how to. If you can't, I'm a little surprised by that. So what is this actually saying? Oh, this is where we're finally at. So, that's interesting. So we know this is the state. But unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure what WinDebug is telling me here. Well, so this is the script that's being run, which is kind of useful. But I don't know what else to do. So I suspect, with nothing to really back this up, that when we did... what is it? This one? That this is our Lua state. But I don't have anything to really back that up with, other than it sounds reasonable-ish. Which is unfortunate. Like, I'd really like to have a better claim here that this is the Lua state. Ooh, I could do that. How do I search memory properly? So bang heap tells me that there are many heaps, but none of them are the one I want. To search memory. Search memory. Search memory. Okay. Windbug search memory. S. I went to S. Our range is unfortunately all of memory. Let's start with like here to here. What's the right syntax for this? Yeah, sure. This. Okay, I don't know how to use the search right. Okay. S-A 0 L7F 1 2 3 1 2 3 4, and I want the string I want is, so if I take a look at this, I can see that like set research progress is probably relatively uncommon of a string. So here are all the places it's getting used. The first three are in our script. The second two, like the rest of them, I have no idea. So let's do that. View memory. Okay, we're gonna do it up here. So this is printing out the string, and then what? So we have a string set research progress, lowercase s is going to be a 7272. Why can't I read this properly? I'm very confused by this right now. So this, I suspect, is actually R, or something related to the state. We said E5 is our E5 our string starts. The string starts before that? It's interesting. Oh, no, I just don't know what I'm looking at. So instead of starting at E, let's start at 80. And E5, I really don't like the way they do this. So this is the start of that. No, this is the start of that string. Set research progress. What else is, like, what other stuff is this telling me? So similarly, so this starts in an offset of 4. So for people following along here, I suspect what I'm looking at here is at least somewhat related to the sort of looking for Lua state, and that my thought is that there should be a mapping here of this string to a function. Like there has to be code to actually do something with this. But I'm not seeing anything that jumps out at me as a pointer. Which is not, that looks like a pointer. 2CD1, no, it's a pointer, but it's not to code. Right, so dbox2cd1e2do. Helps if I can type a little bit better. Like it's a pointer, it's not code though. How do I look up what... Is there a good way to tell me what all of the memory, like, what my memory is? Dash bang address. Oh, it's so big. So much stuff. Okay, so this, though, is actually what I want. I kind of wish I could pop this out easily. So the address that we've been working with here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So prior to this 1, 2 CD1. Scroll, 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 scroll. This is a heap. The allocation base is that. Give me the heap entry information. Yeah. Unfortunately, it looks like there's a little bit of a delay. Having to do real things within WinDebug is not something I've done in quite a while. So it's very easy to forget some of this stuff. Like, kind of surprised the heap is taking this long. But given that we have the string of one of our Lua functions on the heap, I suspect that this is actually what we want to see, that this is the Lua state object, and that by dumping this, we should be able to start poking at it and find out what on earth this thing actually is. But in order to do that, it apparently has to walk all the way back and figure out what on earth is going on. So, like, thinking about this logically, what it's having to do here is it's having to start at the base of this heap block and map out all of the segments until it gets to the one that I'm requesting, which is quite a ways along. Because otherwise, there's not a good way to know, like, where does this block start? So, But I think this is what we want to have. Like, I think this tells us what the Lua state is, which I think will let us start digging in and finding out what all of the functions are. The next hard part, and that I don't have a good answer for, is figuring out what exactly the Lua state object is. The good news is that the Lua source code is available, so we can look at that, but it's not going to be trivial. At least I don't think it's going to be. But it will get there. It will get there. The heap block should start the base address displayed there. It's possible. But I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't think I have an option other than sitting here and waiting for WinDebug to finish. So for people who are not used to using WinDebug, my understanding is that this busy here means hands off, it will not do anything until it finishes that. So I must just sit here and wait until it finishes that. And sooner or later it will. Sooner or later. That may be quite a while though, because it's probably doing quite a bit to try and figure out what on earth is going on in this heap. But this is very good. Like, I'm very happy that it has figured out at least a chunk of what, like, I think this is where I wanted to be, because I'm pretty sure that this is the Lua state object, which means that we can start actually digging in and figuring out what this object is. So let's think about this for a minute. If I assume this is the Lua state object, the next step is to reverse out or otherwise figure out what this is, which means I want to ideally get a symbol for it. But I don't necessarily know what version of Lua they're using. And since it's an opaque object, it's a safe assumption that any modification, like, I'm kind of diving in blind. I can poke at it, and I can make some guesses, and that might be my best bet. Right? Like, I can assume that it looks similar to another modern-ish Lua, but I can't know that for sure. What else can I do, though? Come on. So can I save this right now? Like, saving a workspace isn't going to do quite what I want. I want to dump this, so I should be able to, like, dot dump or bang dump, right? I say this, and of course I actually did this quite a bit. Dot dump. Okay. WinDebug.dump creates a dump file. Options, I can do /f. No, I went /ma or mf. MA is all optional, MF is full memory. So I want to do a .dump MA. So once this finishes, I'm going to do a .dump MA to save this off, and we can, because I want to make sure to save this so we can start looking at it again next week. That's not to say that I am ending this right away. I just want to save this off in case we have any crashes again. And relatively soon, I think we're going to be wrapping up the stream. I mean, at this point, it's been about 2.5 hours. And I'd like to go a little bit longer, but not crazy longer. Oh, if this doesn't pick up and actually do something in the next couple minutes, I think I'm just going to leave this running until it finishes, and we can call it a day now. So I guess while this is running, we can talk back through everything we've learned. So that's kind of exactly what you expect, right? As soon as I start talking about what I'm going to do while I wait. So the object we had there has a heap size of 40. Is that correct? So if I do db this thing, I expect 1, 2, 3, 4, and that this is going to be the start of a new block. I'm not sure I believe that. Though I don't know enough to prove you wrong. So if I say, tell me what this is, please don't take as long. This is going to be quite unfortunate. Like, is it? I'm really hoping it caches this stuff. Because if it doesn't, that's kind of awkward. And given that it didn't just return, I assume it does not cache this at all. Which gives us that opportunity to talk about what we know so far. So last week, we figured out some of these XML files. We poked at those. We looked at some of the at least one of the Lua files. We know that it runs these Lua files. Then we did a little bit of reversing to find out that it's not as easy as just this function gets called, which opens this other thing. Which leads to this week, where today we've been trying to get a debugger working so we can actually look at what on earth is this thing doing. With the end goal of getting this Lua state. If we can get the Lua state, my hope is that we can take that and find out just what's going on. How do we find all the functions we can call? Because what I'd like to do, and what hopefully we'll be able to do by no later than next week, is I want to map getText, this function name here in Lua, to code in the binary that I can open up here and say, here is the disassembly of getText. Because once I do that, then we can start actually looking for bugs in these functions. Ideally, what we're going to end up with is, here is the mapping of set research progress to a function. What I'd love to have, and hopefully we get to relatively soon, is the mapping of all of these functions to code. Now, that may be more complicated than it sounds, but that's at least the goal of what we're going to get to. Because that's kind of the ideal, right? That we're going to be able to pull all this stuff out and do something useful with it. But this is taking a while, and we are now at the 2.5 hour mark, so I guess it's probably about as good of a place as any to call it a day for today's stream, at least. We'll pick up back here next week, so next Friday at about 4 p.m. It might be a little earlier or later, because I think next week is when Ginvale is supposed to be back and doing his stream again. He said mid-January, so next week, maybe the week after. I don't actually know yet. I don't think he's announced it. And when he's streaming, I like to go on whenever he finishes. So 4-ish, give or take 15, 20 minutes. Other than that, we're going to be picking this back up the same place we are, hopefully with a little bit more information, because I'll hopefully have this saved off and be able to pick this right back up. But other than that, it's been nice having everyone. Hopefully you all come back next week. Because hopefully next week we're going to start being able to do some cool stuff. What I'd really like to get to relatively soon is a place where we can take, here's a string or here's a file, jam it into the current Lua state and run it. Because once we have that, we can start doing a lot more quickly. Right now, to test anything involves probably 5 minutes of round trip time to save a file, load up the module, try and get it to run, check to see what happens. If it does crash, we're still on this huge feedback cycle, because I don't even, like, WinDebug can't catch that because they're doing some silly anti-debugging to make it so Windebug won't work. That might actually be a good thing to do between now and then. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research and see if there's an easy way to defeat this. Because maybe we're lucky and it's pretty simple to just say, actually, Windebug will work now. Because that'd be great. Like, if we can get Windebug to just work, that'd be a situation I'd like to be in. So, like I said, everybody, this is just sitting here, so it seems like about as good of a time as any to call it a day with the stream. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. Bye!